Welcome to Let's Talk Money Honey, the podcast where we break down the world of investing and wealth building for women who are ready to control their financial futures. We're your hosts, Elise Levy of Legacy Wealth Planning
and Holly Henry of Diamond Legacy Wealth Management. We're two financial advisors on a mission to empower and educate women so they can build confidence, work towards growing their wealth, and pursue their biggest investment goals. Investing isn't just for Wall Street, it's for you. Whether you're just getting started or looking to level up your portfolio, we're here to make investing approachable, fun, and totally doable. So grab your coffee
or your wine and let's talk money, honey. All right, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Money Honey, and I think we have such a great topic today just based on what's going on in the world and the U.S. job market. So, Holly, what are we talking about?
We are going to talk about, are you financially prepared for a job loss? Just because you're just seeing so many headlines these days about large corporations having to let go. I believe I saw today that Oracle was letting go like 18,000 employees. And this just seems to be a normal headline that we're seeing now in the midst of what I feel like is part of the Iran war, but it's just almost coming a little bit normal. And so I feel like this just is a topic that isn't spoke about enough.
Absolutely. And I think I'm guilty of this. We're all guilty of this. We get comfortable where we are and we feel like our company's looking out for us. And the truth is that the person that needs to look out for you the most is you, right? So this is just a good list of things because obviously, Holly and I do not want anyone to get fired or let go. But the reality is it can happen, and a lot of times it catches people off guard. And so having these things in place financially so that when that happens, it doesn't start this, tumbleweed effect of pulling your whole life out of order. I think that's why it's so important.
Yeah, and I will also say that this isn't just due to being let go because of corporations letting people go. I have so many clients that have had to quit jobs just because of health issues. They were not ready to retire, not even maybe even near retirement age, but they are having to take a step back just because of life. And so we want to make sure that if this is ever a situation that you're faced with, that you are prepared. And so one of the things that we really need to talk about just right off the bat, and I'm telling you, Elise and I mention this every single podcast. So if you have listened
it's
to
any,
yes, you are going to have this memorized because I just feel like most Americans do not take this seriously, and that is an emergency fund. And so typically an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of savings of what it's going to take for you to live off of. 3 months if there's 2 working incomes coming in, 6 months if you're just the breadwinner.
Yeah, and I think, both Holly and I think are more conservative than people realize. Mm-hmm. I have 6 months of living expenses, and I do not, it's not just the mortgage. You calculate in what groceries are, what, your electricity bill is, internet, all these expenses, and really get a number that's realistic. Gas, which as we know is more expensive right now, but it makes you feel so much more comfortable because you're like, okay, worst case scenario, me or my spouse loses their job. They have 6 months to really figure it out. And that's like, they get to find a job that really works for them, take their time, shop around. And as we know, it's not quick to find a replacement job, especially if you are kind of higher up in the corporate world. You're not going to go be an entry-level job somewhere else. So I think that safety that it provides, not safety, but just a resource for when things happen. And I think that freedom also, if you decide to leave your job, and you're just done with it, like Holly was saying, and you need to find another job, you have that time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I also want to mention, and we say this often, we do not invest that money aggressively in the stock market. My recommendation is it's either in a savings account, preferably a high yield savings account, but it's money that you can access easily. And the reason we don't want to put that money into like the stock market is like, especially there are times the stock market's going to go down. One, it's going to take time to probably sell your products, so you can't get it to like immediately. Two, if it happens to be when the market's on the loss and you need that money, then you're losing value in that. And I just feel like for an emergency fund, and I live in an area where it's kind of hard to get high yield savings accounts. We're just not walking into banks and retrieving that, but there are great online facilities. And I just always say, have your money make money, put it in something safe like a high yield savings account.
Absolutely, earn that interest. So the other thing is know what the rules are around your retirement account through your workplace. So you could have a 401k, you could have a simple IRA, but either sit down with your HR or whoever's kind of the liaison with that and say, like, what happens when I leave? Is there a holding period? What does that look like? Most times, if you're terminated, it takes about a month after your last paycheck for you to be able to move it into whatever you decide to do. But knowing those rules around your retirement account and how you can access it and roll it into an IRA if you want, or roll it into a new 401k with your new employer, all those options that we've talked about before. But just knowing that and having that information, I think, is super important. And like printing out the statements, having those accessible in a folder or on your computer or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And then something that is also common that Elise and I run into is people think these retirement accounts count as their emergency fund. And let me tell you, it does not. I mean, you can access that money, but if you're under 59 and a half, you're going to get hit with a 10% penalty in most cases. Especially if this is a pre-tax situation, you're going to get hit with taxes when you pull the money out, and then also just an early distribution penalty. I've seen people lose almost 40% of the value of their account in just taxes and the 10% penalty. So know your options, have the emergency fund, know that this money is for retirement, what it's supposed to be used for, not to get you through if you happen to lose your job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think knowing those two different things and sometimes life happens. You have to turn to these things, but understanding the tax implications always is so important. And you can always ask Holly and I or a financial advisor or a tax professional, get those professional opinions so you really know what you're doing when you do it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I need to reiterate is we will not judge. Like, we're here to help you make the right financial choice. And like Elise mentioned, life happens. And sometimes you don't have any other choice but to pull that money. But I do feel like you need to seek a consultation, which we offer for no charge, so there's no excuse, before you make a big decision to take out money that is going to be taxed and possibly a penalty.
Yeah, 100%. So we also want to talk about insurance. So a lot of people get their insurance through their workplace, and either one spouse or the other usually. And so when you're let go, you have to figure out what you're going to do insurance-wise.
Yes, absolutely. So health insurance, it's a big topic. Another one that is just spoke about a lot. And if you happen to lose that, it may cause complications, and you need to know what your options are. You need to know if your company offers Cobra insurance, which is normally going to be any type of large corporation they're going to be required to. You need to know how much that will cost. You need to have a realistic idea of what it will be, because right now chances are your employer may be paying a portion of your health insurance. If for whatever reason you're let go, that nice little benefit is not there. And so you need to understand what Cobra costs are, how long you can be on Cobra, and then also compare it. Go to an insurance agent that can access the marketplace and see what is comparable coverage and see what rate they can get it for.
Yeah, because sometimes it might be more affordable to pay out of pocket than do the extended Cobra of your original coverage. But I know we have a lot of young families who listen to this, and you need insurance. So that's an important thing to figure out in the very early days of maybe getting terminated.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking termination, loss of job, no fault of your own, whatever, again, this is a no judgment, this is a conversation. we have to go into, you've got to take care of necessities. You've got to take care of mortgage, rent, electric, gas. Health insurance is still such a big one, because what you don't realize is if you happen to have an accident and you're expected to pay out of pocket for that, chances are you're going to end up having to file for bankruptcy. That's just one of those things that I feel like, red flag, please keep your health insurance. If you have internet, if you're going out to eat, there's a lot of things that I'm going to say is not as important as health insurance. And I know that is brutal, but I think we've just seen it. We've just seen that in these situations, until you can get another job and land squarely back on your feet, health insurance has to be a higher priority than comfort.
Absolutely. And look into it. Maybe your spouse has an option and it was more expensive originally, but now it's better than nothing. So, it's always a juggle, and we're always here to have those conversations. And if we're not an expert in the field, we always know someone to connect you with. So we're a good resource that way. Yes. The other thing we wanted to talk about is one thing that happens when you're let go is you're often, not all the time, but you can be offered severance pay, or what's called a severance package. Holly, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so especially with larger corporations, if they're having to do just like a mass cut, they will offer a severance. This means you're going to be paid for so many weeks. And normally this is based on your seniority or how long you've been there. You're probably not going to get your full salary, but like we've said, anything is better than nothing. And this will just basically gives you a little bit of time to get back on your feet. And again, we're going to have that emergency fund, hopefully, but any little bit helps. I only typically see this in large corporations. This is not mandatory to be out there. Most small businesses cannot afford to do severance packages. And so I'm thinking it's going to be like the Walmarts of the world. These large companies that you just know by name. And so check, if you happen to work for one of those, check to see if a severance package is just an option. I just think it's just, again, I feel like knowledge is power. So the more you know, the better you can make these decisions if something happens.
Absolutely. And I think we live in America and everything is a negotiation if you want it to
100%.
be. So, just going into those conversations knowing there's no harm in asking. The worst thing that people can say to you is no. So,
absolutely.
So ask the questions. Maybe you're shut down, but at least you asked and tried and advocated for yourself. And I think that's always something Holly and I preach is you have to be your own advocate. No one's looking out for you, unfortunately. And so these things, before you're even in that situation, having all these things in place is so important. And having knowledge is power, exactly what Holly said, knowing where to look for everything, but just having yourself be as prepared as possible. And I know it's cryptic sometimes, but I really am in the mindset of prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I think it's a good way to live.
Yes, absolutely. And I just, again, want to reiterate, we're here as a resource. So we love it when people say, hey, I've watched this video, I've read your newsletter, and I have questions. For me personally, I don't care if you're a client or not. We truly care for people. And we want to make sure that you are making correct financial decisions. And if you just have a question, just feel free to reach out to us, and we are just here to help.
Absolutely. And as you guys know, you can always watch our other videos for great financial topics with other resources. We have our monthly newsletter that's just a little bit more tidbits of financial advice and just good information there as well. And we hope you continue watching our videos, and thank you so much.
Thank you.